Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today we are once again talking about the MVP debate, which has probably been the hottest topic of conversation this entire season in NBA circles. It's once again a very toxic debate for the most part, surrounding Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid, the two best centers in the game, and honestly, two of the most talented centers to ever play the sport of basketball. It's really fun watching these two guys battle out for the award every single year, although I do think Giannis should get more conversation for this award, and I made a couple of videos recently talking about how Giannis deserves a lot more credit in the MVP race and how it's actually a three-man race, not a two-man race like many people are making it seem. But regardless, it seems like the media have kind of decided that, again, it's going to be Jokic versus Embiid for the third straight year. And Jokic has taken home the award the past couple of seasons. For a while, for most of the year even, it felt like Jokic was going to go back to back to back. But Embiid suddenly made a massive comeback, and now it seems like we might be in for the closest MVP finish of all time. You may think I'm exaggerating, but if we take a look at ESPN's most recent MVP poll, which came out a couple weeks ago, that polled 100 media members, not all of which have MVP votes, but overall, it's just kind of a good reflection of how the media is feeling. It was ridiculously close. Nikola Jokic edged out Joel Embiid in first place votes with 42 to Embiid's 40, but Embiid had 45 second place votes to Nikola Jokic's 39, thereby giving Embiid the slight edge by just 2 total points. That's a ridiculous margin. The closest race prior to this, if this kind of margin does hold when the MVP poll actually happens, was Charles Barkley versus Magic Johnson back in 1990, where Chuck had 11 more first place votes, yet Magic Johnson edged him out by 22 total points. 22 total points is a very close margin. 2 is basically recount territory where a single vote can swing the entire award. And this is wild because once again, it felt like Jokic kind of had this thing wrapped up a few months ago. But then Embiid stormed back into the conversation. Giannis also made his case known. But it's reached the point where now it feels like most people are kind of leaning Embiid. And a couple days ago, he had a performance that honestly might have sealed the award for him. This performance was a statement game against Boston where Embiid dropped 52 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 blocks, while shooting a ridiculous 80% from the field against a team that typically game plans for him very well, and I thought they played good defense for the most part. He was just unstoppable. It didn't matter what they threw at him, he was going to score. And I'm sure some of you are going to mention, oh, Jaylen Brown didn't play, Robert Williams didn't play. I don't really care. You could be playing against a team's third stringers. If you put up a 50-point, 13 board, 6 assist, 80% shooting game, I'm going to be very, very impressed. In fact, he's just the second player ever to have a game with 50 points, 10 boards, and 5 dimes while shooting 80+% from the field, joining, of course, Wilt Chamberlain. This performance just caps off a monster season from Embiid, especially over the past few months, where he has forced his way back into the MVP conversation, despite many people thinking that it was over. Like I said, I was firmly in the Jokic camp for a majority of the year. Then Embiid over the past few months has kind of convinced me towards his side. I was even on Team Giannis for a little bit as well. But it's reached the point where with this performance and what he's done over the course of the season, I have personally decided that my metaphorical MVP vote will be going towards Joel Embiid. In addition, he probably sealed the votes of the people that actually matter with that game as well. According to FanDuel, his odds to win MVP went from like plus 135, I believe, which was right there neck and neck with Nikola Jokic, basically tied, to now minus 600, which is the same odds that the Nets had last night to beat the Detroit Pistons, who are actively trying to tank still for Victor, despite the fact that they've got the one spot all locked up. So it seems pretty sure, according to Vegas, that he's going to win this award. And the more media members that I see talk about it, players are now campaigning for him, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard. It seems like everything is building toward Embiid taking home that first MVP award after he finished second place the past couple of years. But obviously, to win the MVP, you have to do a lot more than play one single great game. Embiid has played a million of them. He has been dominating this entire season on a historic level. I don't think people realize just how great Embiid has been this entire year. So today I thought I'd make this video explaining why Embiid is my pick for MVP, and ultimately I think when he probably does win the award, he is the most deserving candidate. To begin, let's start with the stats. On the season, Embiid is averaging 33.3 points per game, which is the highest total in the league, 8.5 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1 steal, and 1.7 blocks, while shooting 54.7% from the field, 32.8% from deep, and 85.9% from the line, which totals a true shooting percentage of 65.4, well above league average. Offensively, it's one of the most dominant seasons we have ever seen from a big man. It's the 10th highest scoring season ever by a center, joining Wilt, Kareem, Bob McAdoo, Moses Malone, and Walt Bellamy, me as the only ones to score 30 points per game and the first 30-plus point per game season by a big since Embiid last year, and before that, it was Kareem and Bob McAdoo in 1975, 48 years ago. Additionally, he is the highest true shooting percentage out of any 30-plus point per game season by a center ever. In fact, if we look at just overall 30 point per game seasons regardless of position, he's the fourth highest true shooting percentage in one of those, only behind Steph Curry and Adrian Dantley. In fact, do you know how many players have averaged Embiid's total of points at 33.3 with a 65 true shooting percentage or better? It's one. It's Joel Embiid this season. He's having one of the most efficient and dominant scoring seasons of all time, and I feel like not enough people are talking about this. They talk about his free throws or this, that, whatever. Embiid is doing things that we rarely, if ever, have seen in the league regardless of position. I mean, if we just once again talk about centers, he's only the third player to ever have 3 50-plus point performances in a season, alongside Wilt and Kareem. He has 13 40-point games, joining those two and Bob McAdoo as the only centers to ever have that many in a year. It's been ridiculous. What he is doing is something that we haven't seen in 40, 50 years, and even then he's doing things that they didn't even do. If we look at just this season, he is the highest point per game average out of anybody in the league, while also having the highest true shooting percentage of any player that shoots at least 20 times a game. He's dominating not just the history books, but if we're talking about just this season, which the MVP award is focused on, he's also dominating the entire league. This is all while being the focal point of the offense and getting double teamed a ridiculous amount of times. Embiid gets double teamed on 35.5% of all possessions. That's absurd. That's one of the highest totals in the league, because teams know that when Embiid gets into that painted area or even in the mid-range, if you don't send two bodies at him, you're in big trouble, because there's really no one in this league that can consistently stop Embiid one-on-one. Really, the only body that can stop him is just kind of him being out of rhythm. When he gets into that mid-range area, his jumper is basically automatic. He can shoot right over you. It's pretty much impossible to block. Hits you with a couple of jab steps. You can't play too far off of him, because then he'll get plenty of space and shoot right over you. But if you play too close, he's going to draw a foul or just body bump into you, force you off your spot, and still get his jumper off. Even if you send two people at him, if you don't send the double team quick enough, he's just going to recognize it and shoot over the first guy and usually knock the jumper down. In addition to this, he probably has the best footwork in the entire league, making it impossible to really know what he's going to do. When he gets in the restricted area, it's game over. He shoots 74.8% in that area, which is the 6th best in the league. Once again, as a player who gets consistently double teamed, even when he gets right under the basket, teams are going to send two bodies, yet his efficiency maintains across basically every spot of the floor. He can also knock down threes somewhat reliably, hitting them at about a 33% clip, which isn't elite, but as a big, it's pretty solid. And when you combine this with the fact that he's got one of the best mid-range jumpers out of anybody in the league, as well as elite footwork, work out of the post, it just makes him a deadly offensive weapon, because if you play off of him, he can shoot that three, which he can knock down. He's had some games this season where he's hit multiple, so you can't just slack off of him. But if you also play all the way up on him, he's going to get by you, he's going to attack you and probably draw a foul. You've got to give him a little bit of space, but then you allow him to attack you in the mid-range, and he's almost always going to hit that shot. There's no way to consistently stop Joel Embiid. He's truly one of the most versatile offensive weapons in the league. Plus, even if you send a double team at him, Embiid has become a really solid playmaker that consistently makes the right decisions out of the double. He sees it coming and either shoots right there at that moment or kicks it out to somebody on the perimeter, hits somebody on a cut. He is just grown a lot as someone that can see the court consistently, stays aware of those double teams, and constantly makes the right reads to set his teammates up for open shots. While we're on the topic of the team, the Sixers have been great this season, currently with a record of 52-27, good for third in the East, where they're currently locked in for the playoffs, and tied with the Nuggets for the third best record in the association, behind the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics. Probably the most impressive part, though, has been their play recently, as coming out of the All-Star break, the Sixers, according to Tankathon.com, faced the hardest strength of schedule out of anybody in the league. They ended up facing the Bucks twice, the Celtics twice, the Warriors, the Suns, the Nuggets, the Heat twice, and they have them again tonight as you're seeing this video, and the Cavs, amongst many others. Despite this, though, they've held strong, going 14-8, which is tied for the 6th best record in the association over this span. And of course, over this stretch, Embiid has continued his usual reign of dominance, looking continuously like the MVP even in high-profile matchups. Some example of him going off against great teams are when he dropped 52 and 41 on Boston this year, when he dropped 31 points, 6 rebounds, and and 10 assists on Milwaukee to end their near 20-game win streak in early March. And against the Nuggets back in January, he had a 47-point, 18-rebound, 5 assists, 3-steal, 2-block game on 58% shooting against the biggest competition he had for MVP in Nikola Jokic. And somehow we haven't even talked about his defense yet, which has continuously been really good across the entire season. He's the anchor of a Sixers team which has the 8th best defensive unit in the league, while also maintaining great individual metrics. If we take a look at his B-ball index stats, they're pretty stellar across the board. He's got an A+ in rim deterrence, meaning that people don't even want to challenge the rim when he's down low, an A in screener mobile defense, meaning that he can switch well off of screens and play solid D, an A+ in screener rim defense, meaning he plays well off the roll man in pick and roll situations, an A+ in help defensive activity, meaning that he's an elite help defender, which I think most of you probably know, and overall he's just an elite interior defender that also blocks shots at a high volume and consistently grabs defensive rebounds with the best of them to close out defensive possessions. When locked in, Embiid is one of the best defensive bigs in the league, and when you combine this with his historic level of offensive play this season, he's simply one of the most complete players in the entire league. So ultimately, to sum it all up, Embiid is having one of the most dominant offensive seasons in the history of the NBA, despite constantly facing double teams, while simultaneously anchoring a top 10 defense, all for a squad that is firmly in the championship contention picture. That sounds like an MVP to me. I know a lot of people dislike him for his free throw drawing or think he's being gifted an MVP just because he's finished second the past couple of years, but Embiid has truly earned this honor to potentially be given the award. The things that he's doing are things that we have really never seen on the NBA stage. I think at this point in the year, he's the most deserving candidate and has earned my personal pick for the award. However, if you're still in the camp of Jokic or Giannis, I don't think you're necessarily wrong. Both of them themselves have had monster seasons. Giannis is putting up his career high in points per game, leading the Bucks, who have dealt with many injuries, to the top seed in the Eastern Conference while simultaneously playing great defense himself. While Jokic is also leading his team to the 1 seed as one of the most dynamic offensive hubs that we've ever seen, nearly putting up a triple-double average. If either Jokic or Giannis end up winning the award, or you think that they should, that's completely cool with me. They're both highly deserving candidates that if they won it, I think that'd be awesome, because I really don't think you can go wrong with these 3 players. That's been one of my biggest problems with people debating the MVP, is everybody acts like there's one choice that has to win the award or else it's rigged, it's a big mistake. These 3 guys are having incredible seasons each individually. Their teams are all highly successful. They each have very great arguments for winning the award. Unfortunately, only one can win, and I'm sure people are going to be very mad about whoever it is, but me personally, I think it's been one of the most fun races to watch pretty much ever, almost in the history of me watching basketball, and I'd love to hear who y'all have as your MVP in the comments. I think it could be a really fun debate if we keep it non-toxic. Although I already know there's going to be a lot of mad comments on this video, because that's typically what happens whenever I make MVP videos, and also videos about Joel Embiid. People just aren't a big fan of him in general, which I don't quite understand. I think he's incredibly entertaining to watch, and overall, I think he has been worthy of earning the MVP honors this season. He's my personal pick. Like I said earlier, please let me know in the comment section below who is your pick to win the MVP award. I think any of those 3 guys are a great choice, and as always, I'd love to hear what y'all have to say. With all that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. Helps the channel out way more than you can imagine. We've got a ton of great content coming up with the playoffs right around the corner. There's going to be videos every single day when the playoffs do roll around. And also, I plan on making a full awards picks video, so if you want to see that, please let me know in the comments too, in addition to your MVP pick. I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.